So on my old workbench, I had a small drawer that I had put in just to hold small odds and ends. Extra pencils, a pair of scissors, little things like that. And I found it really convenient. I had always intended to add a drawer to this bench, but until now I still haven't gotten around to it. So that's what I'm going to work on today. But adding a drawer to a structure like this presents a bit of a problem because it's all open under here and there's simply nowhere to mount it. Let me show you what I mean. Here on my grinder cabinet, you can see how a traditional drawer would typically work. You would usually have some kind of dust frame or dust board in here for the drawer to sit on, and that's how the drawer would be supported as it opens and closes. However, down here on the workbench, we pretty much have nothing. There's nowhere to actually mount this. So what we're going to have to do is come up with a system to hang it and support it from underneath the bench. The solution that I'm going to use is to build a drawer very similar to how they were built in the 17th century. That's back in the 1600s. Before most of the fancy furniture of the 18th century, drawers were hung, whether it was in a chest of drawers or a chest with drawers, they were typically side hung. In fact, that's very similar to what you would see today in a modern kitchen or bathroom cabinet where mechanical drawer slides are mounted to the side of the drawer. Well, we're going to do something very similar to that in order to mount and suspend the workbench drawer. We're going to make wooden runners for the drawer to ride on. And to start, we're going to just make the drawer. Okay, you've seen me cut dovetails before, so I'll just go through this really quickly. I've arranged my drawer parts the way that I want them. Front and back get marked with a triangle. Two sides also get marked with a triangle, and that is going to make it easy for me to orient these later. I then took my marking gauge, scribed the thickness of this board onto this board, all four sides on my tail boards, only on two sides on my pin board. I laid out my pins on the end of that board. On the end of the front, we've got just one large pin, and you'll see why that is later, but we're only going to cut one big old tail on the front part of the sides. So I've got one big old pin laid out on either side. I've also made sure that these are going to be half-blind dovetails, so this distance here is the same as this distance from here to here. Now that they're all laid out, I can go ahead and start sawing. So the back are through dovetails, so I can saw all the way. And I'm staying on the waist side of the line, I should say. Even though for these first cuts it doesn't really matter, because I'll scribe my tails off of these pins later. Can come in with a saw, remove most of the waste. And even if I saw a little over, I'm not too concerned. This is the back of the drawer and it's just for a workbench. To transfer the marks, I'll line it up my baseline. Make sure I'm flush on the bottom. I'll just use a pencil. Transfer these. Square these tails across the end grain. Careful Mark the waist, because I do want to be careful on these cuts. So I will take my time a little bit more here. And again, I'm making sure I save the line. And the waist gets removed real quick. So that takes care of the back. That'll do. So now let's move on to the half blind on the front. So a quick box, now we can move on to hanging it. So now that we have the basic box built, we've got the groove plowed for the bottom, I cut away the back up to the level of the groove, so we'll be able to slide the bottom in afterwards. We need to make grooves, big fat grooves in the side of this, so that we can hang it from some type of suspension or whatever underneath the bench. Some way for drawer slides, wooden drawer slides, to work with this drawer. So we're going to go ahead, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a 5/8 inch plow plane iron now, and I'm going to plow a big fat groove right down the middle of the side piece. And I only want to do the side because if I plow completely through the front, you'll see that groove in the front. And by plowing only through the side, I can avoid having the groove show in the front, but the half blind dovetail in the front will also serve as a stop for the drawer. So it'll only go in so far, and then the front of the half blind dovetail will butt up against the drawer runner and it won't go any further. So we're going to take this and we're going to plow a groove in the side. And as you can see here, the groove goes right through the dovetail. So we're just going to trim this dovetail off. I'll just use a coping saw and we'll trim this dovetail just a little bit, or this pin, I should say. It's not the tail. We'll just trim that a little. So after gluing up the box, the drawer box itself, I made these little runners. So these are just probably about 5/8 by 5/8 or so, and they fit into the slot in the side. And they're just a slide fit. There's no play, but they slide in nice and easy. They butt up to the front of the half blind dovetail, so that'll stop the drawer from going back any farther. And they stick back about 1/16 of an inch behind the back of the drawer. And what I need to do is glue these to some kind of mechanism to hang the drawer from the bottom and suspend it from the bottom of the bench. So what I came up with is a simple three-sided box. Now, this is a little bit unconventional. I had intended to dovetail these corners as well, but as you can see, that didn't happen. I ended up cutting these side pieces a little bit too short. I miscalculated, and I cut them too short and didn't account for the dovetail. So they're just pocket screwed together. I'm going to be using pocket screws to attach this to the bench top anyway, so no big deal, no harm, no foul. It's just another way to do things. So what I'm going to do is turn the drawer box upside down. This is the top surface that is going to mount up underneath the bench, so I'm going to turn that down, and I'm going to put everything flat on the bench top and then put a bead of glue on those drawer runners and gently clamp this all together, so that way I glue the drawer runners to this three-sided frame in just the right spot. So the glue on the frame has dried. The runners are glued in place. I finished the drawer box by sliding a panel into the groove in the bottom and nailing it along the back edge so the drawer has a bottom. So we're ready to mount this to the workbench. But I do want to point out one thing. When I designed this, I made sure that this frame was going to fit between my holdfast holes and wasn't going to overhang any of the holdfast holes. And that's for two reasons. One, I don't want to block the holdfast holes because I want to still be able to use the holdfast. And two, I don't want dust falling through the holes into the drawer. So keep that in mind if you're going to design something like this for your own bench. So to help me mount the frame and keep the front opening even, I just cut a little scrap. I'm going to use that as kind of a spreader. And what I'm going to do is push this back until it hits the holdfast, and then I'm just going to pull it forward just a little bit and throw a clamp on there just to temporarily hold things while I get some screws in it. So after planing the top of the drawer a little bit to provide a little bit of clearance, moment of truth,